like I was studying and teaching at the same time, and this kind of mix started to be very interesting.
Good afternoon. I'm Regina Loukotová, head of ARCHIP, School of Architecture, International School of Architecture here in Prague, and welcome at our ARCHIP podcast, podcast about architecture, about studying architecture, and about teachers. Today I have Šimon Prokop here, our teacher, our studio leader, as well as teacher for different classes. So welcome in our podcast, Šimon. Nice to have you here.
Likewise. Hello, everybody.
And we are directing our podcast towards our potential students, current students, as well as their families, their parents. So I would say that everybody is interested in who is teaching at our school, how we teach architecture, and I think that's the main topic of our podcast. So my first question would be, when you were 10 or 12 or 16, you can choose, when was the time when you decided to study architecture, or what led you to study architecture? So
I think you hit the spot.
10?
I think when I was 10, I had a crush on Blender, the 3D modeling software, and I was really astonished by the fact that you can make fire in there. Not the 3D model, not the space, that was not there yet, but you can build something which is not real, but it looks real. I was like, wow, that's cool. And this was taught to me by my friend and like a cousin who's a dentist now, and dentists are using 3D modeling as well for your teeth and so on.
And he was same age as you were?
2 years older.
Okay.
Yeah, but like we were like discovering the functions of that software. It was really early on, and then I started drawing cars, and like I was maybe more into that kind of thing. But then again, another friend of mine actually pointed out how beautiful the city is and how beautiful the buildings are, and that was like, I was 17, 18. I was like, maybe too late to make that decision, but like it was chemistry before that. But then I realized, I can actually do like these modelings. I can use my passion for modeling in this field where it's all about like space and like light and these kind of things. So I just discovered that there's a field of architecture and they do a lot of modeling there, and it's quite interesting, and it's actually all encompassing everything. So I was like, okay, that kind of makes sense.
Also, fire could be included in that. No, that's interesting to build a fire or to simulate a fire. Indeed. We had some buildings in Prague which were actually eaten by fire.
This is not me, okay? I was like 10 and it was virtual fire. Don't link me to that, please.
Great. So my second question would be, where did you study? Where and when, actually, also to give a kind of idea when was that? And did you study only in the Czech Republic, or you also partly studied abroad?
I only studied in Czech Republic, which... Well, it was not a choice, it just happened somehow. So I studied in Faculty of Architecture in CTU, and I think like at that time when I was studying, I already started teaching there. I think I shouldn't say because I didn't have the bachelor degree yet, but we let it slide somehow. And I really liked this, and that was the modeling part of me. And since that, I was studying and teaching at the same time, and this kind of mix started to be very interesting. So there was this pavilion we built with Maria Davidová in Liberec University. I was just fresh out of school, bachelor, but I already was leading a studio with her, and it was a totally different approach. But I was learning so much, and in some ways I thought that I'm learning more than if I was just a student. and that kind of worked for me. Like I've been teaching guitar before that, so like there's a lot of teaching in my life. So that was very interesting as well. And yeah, I'm still kind of teaching there, and but here I have much more opportunity to actually do things on my own. So I'm very happy to be teaching here.
This is what I wanted to hear.
Well, yeah, I know. That's why I'm saying it. It's true.
I'm joking, but so when I'm interviewing my teachers, our teachers, they usually combine like the professional practice, meaning designing houses, participating in architecture competitions, doing master planning, and they combine it with academia. I think in your case it's a little bit different because now, as we can hear, I mean, teaching either guitar or how to model fire or how to model a city is your hobby as well as profession. So you are mostly into academia, into teaching, but on the other hand side, your other skills are also amazing what you can do with computers. So if you can say a bit about that.
Yeah, so I'm always joking when somebody asks what all I'm doing. It usually takes longer than the time span of this little podcast. But I'm teaching, and then we have a consultancy firm together with Lukáš, who's gonna be here as well. And this is like we're supporting studios with whatever. Usually becomes too complicated. It can be geometry, it can be like data structure, it can be like complicated shapes, it can be too many pieces of something on the facade, or kind of like problems which you usually realize somewhere in the middle of the project, and then you need someone who's like either gonna sit down and like gonna click away for 3 months, or you can do it in a smart way, parametrically, and then it's gonna take like some time to build the model, but then you can have all possible versions of that, and you can even start working with some optimization and like evaluate how good this design is, and like change some parameters, evaluate it again, and actually optimize the building for some type of performance. So that's what I'm doing.
But if I may interrupt,
professionally.
Professionally, so when you said you have a consultancy firm and you support different studios, then you meant professional studios.
Yes.
Not studios which we call studios like architecture design studios, which are studios within School of Architecture, but you work in the practice. You make these consultancy services for professional studios.
And it's funny because sometimes we cannot say who we helped with what, because the project is under NDA. But I hope we can find some nice picture of things we collaborated on. And it's I really like it because it's somehow like problem solving. So there's enough architecture for me in it. And on the other hand, like when you actually like start to understand what the problem is, and like you start building some script which can solve that, it's beautiful. I really like that, like this can work, let's go, and then you see all the possible solutions. And I think like the field of architecture is kind of moving towards this. Like all the big studios are actually having at least small or bigger team of people like this. So I think it's important to be taught at School of Architecture, because that's where it's going.
No, definitely. I can recall the bigger studios, like for example MVRDV. We currently collaborate with. They have their unit of you, like directly in house, as well as when I remember the first semester Vinimas taught at Prague Czech Technical University. He immediately picked you and Lukáš to be there with his assistant to help exactly with this, because also the projects we are doing together, they are also based on data, they are based on data and how to work with them, how to get them, and how to
And I think that's actually interesting because we have a couple of softwares which kind of became industry standard, and they have some buttons in some places, and if you find the right buttons, you can do the things which their software engineers intended you as an architect to do. And if you realize this, that means they are actually like limiting the scope of what you can do using that software. And that's why we need to do modeling in physical, like drawing, sketching, and like then you have something here on the paper or in a model, and then you kind of try to push it in there. And I don't like this, and that's why I actually really gravitated towards parametric modeling, where you are making your own tools in that software, and like you're not constrained by that. And especially when it comes to this like data-driven design or like anything sustainable, you need data for this. It cannot be just a hunch. So all those projects kind of need you to be able to express any idea in 3D or with data, and this is why I really believe that we need to teach this at all the faculties of architecture.
Yeah, actually you are teaching here first year students now, and 5 years ago or more than that you started teaching architecture and geometry as a subject, as a course, but in totally different way than we did before. Before, I think we also taught it in more traditional way, but we merged several courses together, and you do it like some kind of a creative way and in form of workshops instead of like isolated classes once per week. So I'd like to ask you probably to explain a little bit about how we teach here, let's say these courses, as well as, and then we can go further to your experience with first year students.
Okay, so let's start with geometry, and there's also mathematics. So this is a nice opportunity to ask you, can we change the name of applied mathematics to mathematical intuition in architecture or something else? Yeah, because that name, applied mathematics, means something else. Just like...
Understand.
I did it. So thank you.
That was fast.
In geometry and architecture, we kind of focus on the problems you can start to be tackling in your design. And again, like we're using these tools from the parametric design like environment. It's mostly Grasshopper and Rhino, and we kind of like prepare students to the fact that some of the geometry of the building might be complicated, but it's worth it to actually do something about it and not be afraid of it, because I feel bad when I hear that, oh, this project was like this, and then we realized, oh, this will be too complicated, and we just make a box out of it.
Right angle. Yeah, that's what you're using a box.
I'm not saying that every architecture needs to have some, crazy curvy design, but the geometry is, it changes everything, and all the performance of the building can be very much affected by the geometry. So like, if we're saying that architect is the one who decides the geometry and the functions in that geometry, or whatever's happening inside of the geometry, we should be able to do something about the geometry. And
very unusual in the Czech tradition, I would say.
Yeah, and I have a funny story with my grandpa after that, towards geometry. And in mathematics, we find a similar approach, because there's a lot of things which somehow come from mathematics, like derivatives and optimizations and these kind of things, which are like based in math, like the whole calculus, and like some people remember it from high school, some don't. And when we show it, when we show what it can be used for in architecture, I hope that students start to be a little bit less afraid of when you say math, everybody's gonna hide under the table. But when you show, hey, this is relevant, and when you're gonna be optimizing your building for this and that, you just need to find a minimum on a curve like this. But the problem is that curve has like 27 dimensions. Okay, good luck with that. Do it on paper. No, there's tools for it, and we shouldn't be afraid of this, because if we don't solve that, the buildings are gonna be ineffective or less efficient, and I think we cannot afford this now.
Super. No, that's great, because I was never sure that what we learned at mathematics classes during my studies that it was somehow relevant to my profession. And I think the relevancy of courses is one of the most important thing for our students. They always ask about, how is that and this course relevant to the future profession. Actually, my late husband Martin, he always said, mathematics is just that I'm able to calculate my, my honorary.
And taxes.
And taxes. No, that's too far. But this is I am very happy that bringing the students, first year students, because this is the course for the beginners, that you do it in this way. I think it's very inspirational.
I think. May I add one more thing to this math thing? Because we started with changing a course actually at CTU together with Lukáš and Jiří Šrubař, a geometrical mathematician, and they also had this old approach to mathematics, and there was a course called Mathematics 2. Nobody wanted Mathematics 2. If you surpassed somehow Mathematics 1, this was really not a popular course. But we realized that all that mathematics in there is actually more about algorithms and algorithmic thinking and these kind of things, which are if you just add the tool of parametric modeling, it's there. You need that kind of mindset in order to do in order to solve problems about geometry, about data, about shapes.
Yeah. And we can agree on that. You said we cannot afford it to not to be efficient, and that's clear. In today's tendencies towards sustainable architecture, towards, let's say, clever architecture, that will be necessary, and more professions are actually going to intervene.
Yeah. So basically, we're not doing the same thing here. And this semester, when we have the first year students, we actually even change those two courses a little bit so that they actually are linked with the studio, because we spent a lot of time with the first years, which we didn't have the chance of doing before, and now we realized, we can be even more relevant because we can actually just link the exercise we always used in mathematics exactly to the thing they're doing in the studio. Yeah. And this is hard to coordinate between all the teachers at any school, even of ARCHIP size that's really hard. But when you're the one teacher is doing that thing, or two teachers, then it's very liberating because we have much more time for this, and we can explain the mathematical part here and then be more practical in the studio and merge it almost.
I understand. So we are speaking about first year students and their studio. This semester we work on Prague 2, not Prague Vinohrady, but future of Prague. We are dreaming about Prague, about future of the city. And in your studio, we take it from the beginning. So you are mostly concerned about the school, about the district where the school is situated, Albertov. Could you say us a few words about what you work with? And we have 5th week of the summer semester today, so where are you about?
So we wanted to collaborate on this Prague Next, Prague 2 thing, and we realized that this is very ambitious because loading the whole 3D model of Prague by itself technically is really complicated. It can be done, but we didn't want to push this amount of technical skill onto first year students, and then we realized, we can actually develop methodologies on a smaller scale, on a smaller site. So because of some experience from previous semester, we just picked the most immediate surroundings of the school. And if you focus on some part of a city, you always discover something. And it's funny because this is a campus. I never thought of Albertov as a campus. And wow, what does that mean, right? And this part of the city is kind of it functions differently than what you're used to in Vinohrady or a residential quarter, but it still has streets, it still has parking, it still has trees in there, and there's no benches, and then there's a nice park next to it, and there's some staircases nobody's using. I started using the staircases on the way here, just it links with the studio. So we just finished the analytical part this week, and today we're going to be showing it to the Vinimas team. And I think a couple of students really digged into this analytical part. A couple of them were struggling, which is normal. And we kind of wanted to try this really data-driven or evidence-based design with them. So we actually forbid them to design anything up till today. Good. So they really have to spend all the effort and all the energy on analysis. And yeah, that was a new thing for the first years. And I think it's important because if you're going to change something in the city, you need to know what's your impact. And you need analysis for that.
You say it's a new thing for the first year students, but you also admitted that it's new thing for you. And I have to say it's new thing to me too, because being here, we moved here from Vyšehrad, which is definitely another experience up there. Yeah. But down here, I was kind of aware of that this is a campus, always a bit mysterious. I never actually lived here or moved around these districts, but every day I'm discovering new positives, what this part of Prague brings me personally, and what it means also to work in these buildings. This building where we are in at the moment was a technical university, German part of the university, and I have to say it's still in these walls here. The kind of concentration and energy
and strictness
and the strictness stuff.
And it's funny, if you look at the old pictures, there's this Albertov Street axis, which now is ending somewhere in one residential building there, but it had some grandiose definitely at that time, and we kind of lost it, some of it. There's still these big institutions with buildings which say, hey, I'm an institution, respect. But when you walk the streets just around the school, there's no shops, there's no coffee, there's nothing. There's the public space is just muddy, leftover grass area, which is being parked on. And I think the first years are actually struggling with this a little bit, but they're learning that, oh, wow, it's the street, and that's the space where we need to change something in order for this to be more livable, more walkable, more attractive, more what makes people stay here after school finishes. There's not much to do, right? After 5, 6, it's a couple of students up there still drawing something, but otherwise it's empty. And that's a really interesting task and hard one, actually.
And I think it's not only for this semester, but I feel that we are here and we may help. We may help with, let's say, initiate something or make some changes, probably some temporary changes. So.
Yeah, I'm sure that all of our students already somehow define that there's a big lack of gathering space for people to just meet. We're a small school inside of this big big university buildings, and I'm not sure if people from one of the faculties meet the other ones. Not to say that there's the chemistry institute and all the other things. So there's a lack of proper space for meeting, and public space should be able to do this, right? So it's just a thing of design to actually provide that.
Nice. I think that's it. Thank you very much, Šimon.
Cool.
I think we can continue. I think it's definitely going to be continued.
I didn't say the grandpa story. Okay, I'll leave it for the first years.
So thank you for coming, and thank you for your attention.